Hey there. Tonight we're going back to a time when death was everywhere, and it wore many faces. You didn't need to be a soldier to die in the Middle Ages. You didn't have to be stabbed or cursed or caught in some royal feud. Number death often arrived in silence, through a handshake, a cough, a bite, a breath. Sometimes it was already inside you before the fever even began. Tonight, you'll lie in bed as we drift through the darkest corners of medieval life, not through war or execution, but through the real monsters, the diseases. Some came quickly, fevers that burned you up in hours. Others took their time, rotting your skin, warping your bones, stealing your mind. And the worst part, no one understood them. No one could stop them. No one even had the words for what was happening. You'll meet the plague with its black sores, the cough that never ended, the sweating sickness that could take you in a single night. You'll feel the scratch of lice, the fear of leprosy, the horror of gangrene. No armor protected against these enemies. No prayer could guarantee survival. These weren't rare nightmares. They were daily life. So lie still. Let the shadows settle around you. Let the past creep in like a fever through your bones. And remember, in the Middle Ages, your body was never really your own. It belonged to whatever killed you first. The scratch that wouldn't heal it starts with something small, just a scratch. You were tending the goat pen, as always, and caught your hand on a rusty nail poking from a broken gatepost. It didn't bleed much. You wiped it with your tunic, muttered a curse, and went on working. You've had worse, but by the next morning the scratch is red and puffy, warm to the touch. You tie a cloth around it and think no more of it. There's no healer for miles, and you wouldn't trouble them for something so simple anyway. By the second night, you can't move your fingers properly. The wound hasn't closed. In fact, it started to ooze. Yellow, thick, and foul-smelling. You bite a stick to keep from crying out as you try to squeeze the pus. Your arm aches, not from labor, but from something deeper. It feels like the pain is crawling under your skin, and then comes the tightness. Your jaw feels strange, your throat stiffens. Swallowing becomes difficult. You can barely speak. You try to call for help, but your mouth won't open fully anymore. Your limbs begin to seize up. You fall in the straw, shaking. The neighbors say you're cursed. The healer arrives too late. She doesn't understand what she sees. She calls it a locked body, something foul, something unnatural. She burns sage and presses your feet with garlic paste, but nothing helps. The spasms worsen. Your back arches off the floor like a bowstring. Your eyes strain and twitch. You bite your own tongue, trying to scream. It lasts for days. You don't eat. You don't sleep. You are paralyzed, except when the pain twists your muscles into knots so deep you hear the tendons snap. And all because of a scratch. A stupid, careless scratch. You don't die from violence or sickness as people understand it. You die from a speck of dirt, the cough that never ended. You first notice it in the mornings, just a tickle in the chest, barely more than a breath caught the wrong way. You cough once or twice, spit into the fire and carry on. After all, everyone coughs in the cold season. The smoke from the hearth clings to the rafters. The mold in the corners grows thicker with each passing rain. You're not the only one hacking through chores, but weeks pass and the cough stays. It deepens, lengthens, it creeps into your bones. At night, you wake choking, your ribs aching from the force of it. Your mouth tastes like iron, and when you spit into a cloth there's colour, dark and wet. You tell no one. You can't afford to be sick. There's no coin for the healer, no time for rest. Besides, it isn't the kind of illness that strikes like lightning. No fever, no sores, just the slow, quiet thinning of your body. Your arms feel lighter, your belt cinches tighter each week. Your neighbours begin to notice. You haven't sung at Mass in weeks. Your steps are slower. Your voice rasps. One old woman clutches her rosary when you pass and whispers that the devil's breath rides on yours. You try to laugh, but the sound turns into another fit of coughing, this one long enough to bend you double in the road. The healer finally visits. She calls it consumption. She's seen it before, a wasting disease. Sometimes they recover, she says, though she doesn't meet your eye when she says it. She brings you a bundle of dried herbs, horehound and licorice root, and tells you to boil them into a tea. You thank her, though you know it won't help. Your nights grow longer. You sleep on your side now, one hand clutching your chest like it might fall apart. When you rise, your mouth is crusted with blood. You feel cold, always, like the fire inside you is dimming. You haven't felt hunger in days, just thirst, always thirst. In the final days, you barely speak. You wheeze instead. The others in your cottage have moved their bedding to the far end of the room. They don't touch you anymore. The children avert their eyes. When you die, it's not sudden. It's slow, hollow. You slip away like smoke from a dying fire, while the cough, that cursed, ever-present cough, echoes one last time. In the Middle Ages, no one feared a slow death. They just expected it. The black buboes. It begins with a pain behind your ear. Just a dull ache at first, like the start of a fever or the pressure of a poor night's sleep. You rub at it absently and keep working. The village is restless today. Another cart passed through with bodies, and the priest has told everyone to stay indoors after sunset. But you need firewood, you need water, you need to live. By dusk, the ache is sharper. You feel flushed, your skin burns. A knot has formed beneath your jaw, hard as a stone and twice as cruel. It throbs like something alive. You try to eat, but chewing hurts, talking hurts, breathing hurts. The next morning it's worse. Your groin swells, and under your arms too, hot, bulging lumps that feel like they might split open if touched. You see them in the mirror-polished bowl of water and gasp. Purple, black and glistening. The smell coming from your skin is something you've never known before. Rotten, metallic, wrong. And then comes the rash. Your chest is spotted with dark red patches that spread like spilled wine. Your skin tightens, your thoughts blur. The fever is a roaring fire now, and your heart races like a war drum in your ribs. You hear voices when no one speaks. Your tongue is dry and cracked, and every swallow is agony. Someone outside is shouting prayers. Another is screaming. The village has changed overnight. Windows are boarded. Smoke curls from chimneys, but no one walks the roads. Every house has hung linen at the door, soaked in vinegar or herbs, charms against a death they cannot see, cannot stop. People have begun to burn their clothing, to flee into the woods. Dogs wander untended. The grave diggers no longer sing. You hear them coming. Not for you, not yet, but for your neighbour's wife. They'll take her in a cart piled with bodies, bury her in a pit outside the wall. No funeral, no bell, just a shovel and quicklime. You can't move now. The pain has fixed you to your mattress. You shake and sob alone in the dark, listening to the flies buzzing outside your window. This is no curse, no punishment from above. This is the plague. It has no face, no voice, only black sores, breathless days and sudden endings, and no one will remember what you were called, only that you died like everyone else. The face that melted, you first notice it when you smile. Your lips feel tight, like the skin around them is too dry, too thick. You run your fingers across your cheek and feel small lumps beneath the surface, like unbaked dough. They don't hurt, not yet, but they don't go away. In a few weeks, the sensation in your fingers changes. You can still move them, but the texture of things feels different, duller, as if your skin is forgetting what it's touching. You burn your hand near the hearth and don't even notice until the flesh blisters. You hide the changes as long as you can. When you go to Mass, you pull your hood lower. You avoid the market and send your sister instead. You scrub your skin raw with lye soap and chew bitter herbs to drive out the devil's rot. But the signs are spreading, your eyebrows thinning, your nose swelling, your voice thickening with every passing week. Then one morning, you look in the wash basin and you don't recognize the face that looks back. Your cheeks are swollen, your eyes sunk deep into folds of inflamed flesh. Your lips curl unnaturally. The nodules on your skin have grown, cracked, oozed, crusted. Your face isn't yours anymore, and that's when they begin to whisper. Leper. They don't need proof. All it takes is one villager with sharp eyes and a louder voice. The priest is summoned. He doesn't touch you. He reads from a scroll, his voice hollow. You are unclean, untouchable. You are cast out. They perform a ritual, not a healing, but a burial. You are declared dead while still breathing. Your clothes are burned. Your name is struck from the rolls. You are handed a robe and a bell and sent into the woods. From now on, you must ring it when you walk near others so they have time to flee. You live in a leper house beyond the village, a crumbling hut where others like you gather, faces half lost, fingers gone, limbs wrapped in cloth. Some are too far gone to speak. Others weep when they think no one's listening. You grow used to the pain, then to the numbness, eventually to the silence. They say leprosy is a punishment, that your soul rotted before your skin did. But you know the truth. It isn't divine judgment, it's just disease, and it stole your face before it stole your name. The bite that burned. It was just a dog. You'd seen him before, a skinny thing that wandered the village outskirts, ribs showing, fur matted with mud. He'd never been violent. You even tossed him scraps once or twice when you had any to spare. But today, something's wrong. You hear growling before you see him. He charges from the shadows behind the smithy, his eyes wild, his mouth thick with foam. He doesn't bark. He doesn't hesitate. His teeth sink into your forearm before you can raise your voice. You fall, stunned, and just like that, he's gone again, loping into the trees. You clutch your arm. The wound is ragged, deep. It burns. Still, it's just a bite. The village boys get worse from pig tusks and plough blades. You clean it with water, bind it tight, and keep working. For days, nothing changes. No fever, no swelling. Just an ache when you flex your hand too far. You think you've escaped whatever madness possessed that beast. But then, you wake at night, gasping, your throat dry and raw. Your mouth is parched, but every time you bring the cup to your lips, your body revolts. The water terrifies you. Your chest seizes, and your hands shake so violently you drop the cup to the floor. Your family watches you grow stranger by the hour. You flinch from light. You flinch from noise. Your muscles twitch beneath your skin. You feel like you're being unraveled from the inside out. A sharp wind makes your whole body jerk. Sounds become needles. You stop sleeping, and then comes the rage. You lash out without meaning to. You snarl when your son places a cool cloth on your forehead. You scream at the priest when he mumbles prayers at your bedside. You see things that aren't there, creatures in the corners, shadows that breathe. They tie you down before the third night. You gnash your teeth against the wood between them. Foam gathers at the corners of your mouth. Your arms and legs twitch in wild spasms. You bite until your gums bleed. By the fourth night, you're no longer human. No healer touches you. No bell is rung. They watch from the threshold, waiting for the final stillness. And when it comes, your body lies twisted, mouth open, eyes wide. In the Middle Ages, it didn't take a curse or a demon to turn you into a monster. Sometimes it only took a single bite, the belly that swelled. It begins with a strange tightness. You've felt bloated before, after feasting too quickly, after spoiled ale. But this is different. It's deeper, a slow pressure behind your navel, like something is building from within. You press your hand to your belly and it feels warm, too warm. Still, you say nothing. Everyone has aches. Everyone gets by. You go about your chores, gritting your teeth when you bend. You carry water, mend clothing, feed the goats. But each day the discomfort sharpens, like a rope being pulled taut inside your gut. On the fourth day, you cannot stand. Your belly has swollen hard and high, like a drum stretched tight. The skin is red in places, blotchy, hot to the touch. You lie on the floor, unable to roll to your side without groaning. The fever comes with it, slow at first, then roaring through your body like wildfire. You shiver in the heat. When the midwife arrives, she doesn't ask questions. She lifts your tunic, prods your stomach, and frowns. She calls it the red wind, a term passed down from older women who had seen it before but never cured it. She brews a tea of thyme and wormwood, ties a poultice of bread mould to your stomach, and whispers a prayer to Saint Apollonia. You vomit twice before she leaves. The days blur. You lie motionless, sweat pooling beneath your neck and spine. You beg for cold water but can barely swallow. Your belly groans and shifts as if alive. The heat in your body turns to burning. You cry out without realizing. The red patch on your stomach spreads, creeping outward like ink in parchment. By the seventh day, your body begins to stink. Even your children flinch when they enter the room. Your breath is sour and shallow. You can no longer pass anything from your bowels, and the pressure inside feels like it may tear you open. You whisper prayers, not for healing, just for it to end. No one says the word infection. No one knows about organs or ruptures or septic blood. They believe your belly was cursed, that something inside you turned rotten, that you swallowed evil, and now it is tearing its way out. They're not wrong. The final night comes quietly. You stop moaning. You stop moving. Your skin turns cold and waxy. A priest marks your forehead and leaves the room without looking back. Your family waits one more hour before covering your body with a cloth and opening the window. In the Middle Ages, what you couldn't see inside you was often what killed you fastest. The eyes that went white. It starts with grit. At first, you think it's dust from the road or a flake of ash from the fire. Your eyes itch. You rub them. They water. They sting. But it's nothing, you tell yourself. It'll pass. Except it doesn't. The itching worsens. Your lids swell. They stick together in the mornings, and when you force them open, the light feels like it's slicing through your skull. You wince even in the shade. You walk with your eyes half closed. your hand shielding your brow. By the third day, the pain is constant. You can't keep from rubbing. The corners of your eyes burn like hot coal. There's a yellow crust now, thick and foul-smelling. The midwife tells you it's just eye fire. She brings you a salve made of goose fat and marigold and says to sleep with cabbage leaves on your brow. You try everything, but nothing helps. Your vision begins to cloud, not all at once, like fog creeping across a field. Shapes lose their edges. Faces become shadows. You can't tell dawn from dusk in the cottage anymore. You drop things. You miss steps. You stop going to market. Then, one morning, you see nothing at all. Only a vague brightness where the sun is. Everything else is dark. A milky, unfocused darkness. You blink hard. Rub harder. But your eyes don't return. Panic rises in your throat. The healer says you must have angered something. That blindness is a punishment, a lesson for those who looked where they shouldn't. She lays her hand on your head and recites a psalm, but her voice is more fearful than faithful. They call it white blindness. You begin to rely on your ears, your hands, the memory of where the table is. You count steps. You stop going outside unless someone leads you. You stumble often, bruising your knees and shins. Your eyes are no longer red. They're pale, washed out like glass marbles. Children stare. Some throw stones. The world shrinks. It becomes one room, one path, one voice at a time. You no longer recognize your own reflection, though no one dares place a mirror in your hands. You don't die from this, not right away. But you're not living either. You've been erased slowly, from the eyes outward. In the Middle Ages, to lose your sight was to vanish long before the grave. The skin that peeled away, it begins with a bruise, not a large one, a purple mark on your shin, the kind you get when carrying firewood or slipping on wet stone. You barely notice it at first. You rub it, hiss through your teeth, then forget about it. But 2 days later, it hasn't faded. In fact, it's darker, angrier. You pull up your trouser leg and see that the skin around it has turned tight and shiny, stretched over swollen flesh. It burns to the touch. A thin crack appears, leaking yellow pus, and the smell, sweet, sickly, and wrong, clings to your fingers. You tell no one. You bind it with cloth and try to walk it off. But each step is fire. You begin to limp, then drag. By the third day, you can no longer bear weight on the leg at all. Your muscles throb beneath the skin, and you can feel something moving deeper, spreading upward. The healer peels back the cloth and gasps. She says nothing at first, just crosses herself and backs away. The skin has begun to die. It sloughs off in grey strips, exposing tissue beneath that pulses and oozes. Flies gather even in the winter air. Your body fever burns, but your leg is cold. Black in places, red in others. The rot moves faster than the prayers. You're told not to look at it, but it's too late. You've already smelled what's coming. They call it rot fever. Some say it's punishment for hidden sins. Others say it's a spirit that lives in wounds and feeds on the careless. They try everything, poultices of mould and honey, hot coals held near the skin, even slicing away the dead flesh with a dull blade. But nothing stops it. You scream until your throat goes raw. Amputation is whispered about, but no one in your village knows how. You would likely die from the cutting alone, so instead you're given wine. Not for healing, but for forgetting. You lie in the corner of the room, leg wrapped in damp linens, watching as your skin unravels. The smell seeps into the walls, into your bedding, into memory. By the end, you are delirious. You beg for someone to finish it, to crush your skull with a rock, to end the burning. No one comes. You die slow, decayed, forgotten. In the Middle Ages, infection didn't just kill, it devoured you piece by piece. The madness in your blood. At first, it's a sore, tiny, hard, just below your belly. You notice it one morning while washing, but it doesn't hurt, so you ignore it. Maybe it's a bite, a scrape. You cover it with cloth and move on. But it doesn't heal. Days pass, and more sores bloom, angry red at first, then dark and crusted. They spread, thighs, chest, neck, even inside your mouth. Your joints begin to ache. You wake with stiffness in your legs, your back. A rash appears, wide and blotchy, and no matter how much you scrub with vinegar or ash, it won't leave you. The healer has no name for it. She calls it the spotted sickness. She gives you a potion made of ground antlers and dried figs. It tastes like ash. It does nothing. Then the madness begins. You see things that aren't there. Figures in doorways that vanish when you blink. You lose track of time. You wake in strange places. Your tongue forgets words. You try to speak, but your thoughts run sideways. You say bread when you mean fire. You forget your daughter's name. Your nose starts to collapse, not all at once. It happens slowly, over weeks. The cartilage softens, the skin cracks. You bleed constantly. The bone beneath disintegrates. When you breathe, it whistles. When you sleep, it leaks. You smell nothing anymore. Your hair falls out in clumps. Your eyes grow yellow. Your fingers tremble even at rest. And worst of all, your mind drifts further from shore. One day, you mistake your wife for a stranger. You call your son father. You walk into the fields barefoot, shouting at no one. The villagers whisper, but they no longer come near. Children are told to keep away. Your name is never spoken without a prayer. The priest suggests chaining you to the bed. He brings a crucifix and lays it on your chest. It's a sickness of the soul, he says, a punishment. You nod, though you barely understand him. You feel like you're floating above your body now, a passenger in rotting flesh. They don't bury you right away when you die. They burn the bedding, wash the walls with lye, close the door for 7 days. They say you were cursed by lust, by sin. But all it took was one night, one partner, one touch. In the Middle Ages, the madness wasn't in your mind. It was in your blood. The sweat that killed it comes without warning. 1 hour, you're splitting firewood beneath a calm blue sky. The next, your skin begins to prickle. A flush spreads across your chest and back. You feel hot, too hot, as if the sun has pierced straight through your tunic and into your blood. You stumble indoors, wiping your forehead, but the sweat won't stop. It runs in streams down your face, soaks your collar, turns your linen to wet rags. Your heart begins to race, pounding like a drum inside your ribs. You sit down, then lie down, then can't get back up. They say it moves fast. They're right. Within an hour, the fever is raging. Your skin is red and blotchy. Your eyes burn. You shake with cold, even as you're drenched in sweat. Your mouth tastes like metal. Your muscles cramp and seize. You can barely speak. Every breath feels too shallow, too fast. There is no rash, no cough, no visible wound, just the sense that your body is boiling from the inside out. The villagers are afraid to come near. They've seen this before. A man alive at sunrise can be dead by sunset. The sweat, they call it. Sudor Anglicus. Some say it's punishment for pride. Others say it's the devil's fever. But no one knows how it spreads, or why some survive. Your bed is soaked. Your hands tremble so violently that your teeth chatter. The air around you feels thin, as if even the walls are holding their breath. You cry out for water, but when it touches your lips, you retch. You're drowning in your own skin. The healer refuses to enter the room. She hands your sister a pouch of herbs and leaves. If he's alive by morning, he may live, she says. But morning never comes. Within 6 hours of the first sweat, your body shuts down. Your breathing slows. Your skin turns waxen. The sweat cools. Your heartbeat vanishes like a whisper in a storm. There is no time for ritual, no time for goodbyes. The bedding is burned. Your body wrapped in cloth and buried quickly, quietly, without a bell. And the worst part, they still don't know what took you. You died clean, unmarked, and yet something inside you collapsed like a snuffed flame. In the Middle Ages, death didn't always give warning. Sometimes it just arrived. The fever that came and went until it didn't. The chills arrive without warning. It's a hot day, and yet you shiver. Your hands tremble so much you drop the bucket at the well. At first you think it's fatigue. You've been overworked. Maybe it's the damp air from the marshes. But by evening, you're wrapped in every blanket you own, still shaking, your teeth clattering in your skull. Then, just as suddenly the fever breaks. You're drenched in sweat, heart pounding. You gasp like someone who's been drowning, and then it's over. You feel weak, but the fever is gone. You sleep, you dream, and by morning, you're well enough to work again. Almost. Your limbs feel hollow, your head foggy, but you're alive. You return to the fields. You laugh it off until it comes again. 3 days later, at the exact same hour, the chill seizes your spine once more. You collapse against the barn wall. It's worse this time, more violent. You convulse. You vomit. The sweat returns, slick and sour. The fever climbs higher than before. You hear bells that aren't ringing. You see lights that aren't there. The healer says it's the marsh air. She burns herbs and hangs mugwort from the ceiling. Stay out of the lowlands, she warns. Evil rides the fog. But how can you? That's where the grain grows. That's where the village drinks and bathes and breathes. The cycle repeats. Every few days the illness returns. More fever, more sweat, less strength. You stop counting the episodes. You wake not knowing what day it is. You no longer remember the last time your skin was dry or your head clear. The fever grows teeth. The tremors deepen. Your joints ache like they've aged decades. You stop eating. You sleep most of the time now, tossing in a damp bed, hallucinating priests and birds and demons made of wind. You hear whispers. You forget your own name. When the fever isn't burning you, the cold buries you in ice. And one day, it just doesn't stop. You slip beneath the surface, pulled down by a sickness that never needed a wound. Just a bite. Just a breath of the wrong air. In the Middle Ages, illness didn't always arrive like a hammer. Sometimes it crept in like a tide and never left. The bread that burned you from the inside. It came from the same loaf as always, baked yesterday, a little harder than usual, darker too, with strange grey spots on the crust that you scraped away with a knife. But bread is bread. You had no choice. The harvest was thin, and the rye had sat too long in damp storage. You ate anyway. Everyone did. By nightfall, your legs feel strange, heavy, twitching. Your fingers tremble even when still. You blame it on fatigue, on the cold. You go to bed hoping the warmth will chase it away. But instead of rest, you dream of fire. Flames beneath your skin, sparks bursting in your veins. You wake screaming, though no candle is lit. The room spins, your muscles seize, your hands cramp into claws. You try to walk, but your feet won't obey. You stumble outside into the cold night air. Others are already there. 4 neighbours in the same state, sweating, shaking, weeping. One of them says his fingers feel like they're full of red-hot needles. Another bites at his own wrist, trying to make the burning stop. One girl strips off her clothes and runs toward the woods, howling. The priest calls it St. Anthony's fire. He says you're being purified, purged of sin through divine flame. But no prayer soothes what's burning inside you. The fire isn't metaphor, it's in your blood. Your skin blisters without heat. Your limbs swell, then blacken. Your feet turn hard and cold, and when you try to move them, the pain is like stepping on glowing coals. Some scream until their voices vanish. Others fall silent and curl into themselves, rocking. The worst don't die quickly. They rot slowly, fingers curling inward, toes falling off like fruit left too long on the vine. The skin peels away, the bones shrivel, and all from a piece of bread. By the second day, the village knows it was the rye. Mould had crept into the grain, invisible, silent, deadly. But the harvest is gone. There is nothing else to eat. Some stop eating entirely. Others keep eating, knowing the risk, gambling against hunger, and the fire spreads. In the Middle Ages, your food didn't need to be poisoned. It just needed to grow mould in the wrong season. The face in the mirror wasn't yours. You feel fine that morning. The air is sharp but clear, and your chores come easy. You help mend a broken fence, sweep the soot from the hearth, even smile at a passing neighbour. But by nightfall, you feel off, like something is humming just beneath your skin. You wake in a fever. Your bones ache in ways they never have before. Not soreness, something deeper, like fire inside the marrow. Your head throbs, your back twists. You can't find a comfortable position no matter how you lie. Then the rash appears. It starts behind your ears, tiny red dots that spread down your neck. You think it's just a heat rash or irritation from the wool collar. But within hours, they erupt. Pustules, blisters, hundreds. They bloom across your face, chest, arms, angry and swollen and filled with something that stinks of infection. The pain is exquisite. Your skin stretches tight over the lesions. You can't touch your face without wincing. Your eyes swell nearly shut. Eating becomes impossible. Breathing, a shallow, panicked thing. You try to pray, but the priest won't come closer than the doorway. He's seen this before. They say it came from the east, through merchants, carried by breath, cloth, even coins. Entire villages swept clean in days. It kills children first, then the weak, then the strong. You are not strong anymore. You are wrapped in linen soaked in vinegar. The healer burns incense and presses cool rags to your skin. It doesn't help. The pustules crust over, then burst, then crust again. You scream without sound. Your body is an open wound, and yet you survive. Weeks later, your fever breaks. You drink water again. You take your first steps. But when they hand you the mirror, your heart sinks. You are not what you were. Your face is a map of scars, deep sunken pits where the disease ate through your skin. Your nose is slightly bent. Your left eyelid doesn't close all the way. You run your hand across your cheek and feel craters, ridges, seams. Children won't look at you. Strangers speak in low voices. You're not contagious anymore, but you're still avoided, a walking memory of the plague. In the Middle Ages, death didn't always win, but survival came at a terrible price. The water that wasn't safe. You wake early, just before the bell at the chapel tower begins its morning groan. The fire in your hearth has gone out, and the chill clings to your bones like damp cloth. You reach for your bucket, the old one with the cracked handle, and step outside into the mist. The village is quiet. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, and chickens rustle in their pens. You walk the rutted path to the well, the same one your mother walked to, and hers before her. The stones are slick with moss. Your fingers are stiff with cold as you lower the rope. The water rises from the deep like a secret, dark, rippling, clear enough to see the bottom. It looks clean. It always does. You drink before you even make it home. It tastes like it always has, a little earthy, a little sharp, but fresh enough. You splash some across your face, wipe your mouth on your sleeve, and carry the bucket back to the house. You use it to wet the oats for breakfast. Your youngest dips his fingers in to drink. You rinse your hands, your bowl. You don't think twice. No one ever does. But the danger doesn't lie in what you see. It hides in what you can't. A few fields over, the butcher's runoff has seeped into the stream bed. Behind the tanner's shop, animal hides soak in vats of urine and lime, and when the barrels overflow, they leak into the ground. In the next hamlet, someone buried a pig too close to the bank. None of this is marked. No one connects the dots. Illness is common, and death is expected. So when your stomach begins to cramp by midday, you brush it off. Bad bread, maybe. A chill from the morning. You lie down and try to rest, but it doesn't stop. By sundown, your insides feel as though they're twisting like wet rope. You sweat through your clothes. The fever comes in waves. You feel cold, then hot, then cold again. A neighbour brings a priest just in case. No one says the word cholera. No one mentions dysentery or parasites. They speak of spirits, of sin, of imbalance in the humours. You're bled behind the knees and given warm wine, but the water you drank is still inside you, doing its work. And then, just like that, your breathing slows. It isn't dramatic. There's no violence, no wailing, just the quiet collapse of a body that drank what it was given. The next morning, another bucket is lowered into the same well. In the Middle Ages, death didn't always come with a sword or a scream. Sometimes it rode on a sip of water, cold, silent, and clean-looking as ever. The meat that smelled fine. It's market day, and your stomach growls louder than the merchants shouting their wares. The bread you had this morning was barely enough to fill a child. You've been saving what few coins you have, hoping for something richer. And then you see it. Hanging from the butcher's stall is a bundle of cuts wrapped in rough cloth. Not the good parts, of course, not ribs or fatback, but the scraps. Tongue, knuckle, dark offcuts. It's cheap, suspiciously so, but you ask anyway. Yesterday's pig, the butcher says, avoiding your eye. Still good, smells fine. You sniff. It's not fresh, but it isn't foul either. Not yet. You hand over your last copper and walk home with the meat swinging from a twine cord, the juices dripping a faint trail behind you. The sun is already leaning west. You'll need to boil it long and hot. Inside your one-room home, the hearth is already smoking. You throw the meat into the pot, bones and all, with half an onion and a clove of garlic from the garden. You stir it carefully, letting it simmer, hoping the smell will mask the truth. You feed the stew to your children first. Their mouths shine with grease. They don't even ask what it is. They're just happy it isn't thin porridge again. You eat your share last, scraping the bottom of the bowl. You fall asleep with a full belly for the first time in days, and by morning your guts are in revolt, At first it's nausea, a creeping wave of sickness that you try to ignore. You stand and your knees buckle, your belly groans. You try to drink water, but it comes back up. Then the cramps begin. They hit like fists from the inside. You double over on the floor. You sweat, even though the air is cold. The world swims in and out of focus. You try to call for help, but your throat is raw and your voice barely a whisper. The midwife comes. She presses her hand to your forehead, frowns and says nothing. There's nothing to say. She's seen it before. Rotten meat, maybe. Contaminated stew. She offers you a bit of wormwood tea, mutters a prayer, and leaves quietly. Your children fall ill next. Your youngest vomits through the night. The eldest can't stand. You try to comfort them, but you're too weak. You lie there, surrounded by the stench of sickness, your eyes wide and glassy, watching the rafters above. In this world, no one speaks of bacteria. No one suspects invisible things crawling through muscle and blood. They believe in curses, in sin, in punishment. And you start to believe too. Maybe you're being punished. Maybe the meat was a test. But in truth, it was just spoiled. And in the Middle Ages, spoiled meat didn't need to taste rotten. It only needed to be almost fine. Now, you lie still, not just from the weight of the stories, but from something deeper. A slow, heavy realization. It wasn't war that killed most people in the Middle Ages. It wasn't blades, or arrows, or even fire. It was everything else. The water you drank, the bread you trusted, the scratches you ignored, the itch in your eyes, the cough that lingered, the fever that came and went. It was your body turning on itself before you even understood what was wrong. You didn't need to be cursed, or attacked, or sinful. You just had to be alive. You've walked through 15 ways death found people before they even had a chance to scream. Some died within hours. Some wasted away for weeks. Others survived, but were never whole again. Each one a quiet unraveling. A story that ended in whispers instead of battle cries. And the worst part, no one understood why. They blamed demons, stars, air, God's will, sin. And in that confusion they treated nothing because they didn't know what they were fighting. They burned herbs, they bled veins, they prayed, but none of it stopped the skin from blackening, the breath from shortening, the eyes from going white. In your time, you expect answers, diagnosis, treatment. But back then, a cough was a question with no reply. So as you drift now, tucked under blankets instead of straw, maybe you feel a bit of that silence, that fragility, that breath between one heartbeat and the next when everything could go wrong and no one would know how to help. Let the candle burn low, let the ghosts of the past fade, and remember, if you lived long enough in the Middle Ages to die of something you couldn't see, you were already one of the lucky ones.